Welcome, dear viewers, to an epic journey into the very heart of ancient Greek mythology, a tale of power, betrayal, destiny, and the eternal struggle between gods. Today, we bring you the legendary story of Cronus and the fall of the Titans that shaped the cosmos itself. This is not just a story. It is the foundation of an entire mythological world where the rulers of the heavens rise and fall, where loyalty is tested, and where the fate of the universe is decided by courage and cunning. In this grand narrative, we will follow the path of Cronus, the mighty Titan who dared to overthrow his own father, only to face rebellion from his own children. We'll witness the rise of Zeus and the Olympian gods, the brutal Titanomachy, the war of gods and titans, and the final sealing of the old order. Each chapter will immerse you in vivid scenes of battles, betrayals, and divine power, with characters whose actions shape the destiny of gods and mortals alike. So, sit back, open your imagination, and prepare for a cinematic voyage into the dawn of creation. The age of the Titans awaits, and their fall will echo for eternity. In the beginning, there was only chaos, an endless void, silent and shapeless. From chaos came Gaia, the earth, and Uranus, the sky. Their union birthed the first generation of divine beings, the mighty Titans. These colossal beings embodied the primal forces of the world. Among them were Oceanus, lord of the seas, Hyperion, the light, Coeus, the mind, Creus, the ram, Iapetus, the pillar, Theia, goddess of sight, Rhea, motherly nurturer, Themis, keeper of order, Phoebe, the radiant, Tethys, mother of rivers, Mnemosyne, goddess of memory, and last-born Cronus, the most cunning. Under Uranus's reign, the Titans lived in awe and obedience. But Uranus, fearing his children's power, cast the monstrous Hecatoncheires and one-eyed Cyclopes into the depths of Tartarus, the abyss beneath the earth. Gaia groaned with pain, her heart filling with rage at her husband's cruelty. She sought a child brave enough to confront him. One by one, the Titans refused her call, fearing Uranus's wrath, until Cronus stepped forward. Ambitious and sharp-witted, he saw in this act the chance to seize ultimate power. Gaia forged an adamantine sickle and placed it in his hands. Cronus accepted, knowing the night ahead would change the order of the cosmos forever. Character appearances: Gaia, Uranus, Cronus, Titans, Oceanus, Hyperion, Coeus, Creus, Iapetus, Theia, Rhea, Themis, Phoebe, Tethys, Mnemosyne, Hecatoncheires, Cyclopes. The plan was set. That night, Gaia positioned Cronus in a secret place, hidden among the shadows of the earth. The air was heavy with anticipation. When Uranus descended from the heavens to lie with Gaia, Cronus, armed with the gleaming adamantine sickle, waited silently. His heart pounded, but his ambition burned brighter than his fear. As Uranus lowered himself upon Gaia, she gave the signal. Cronus sprang from his hiding place with swift, precise movement. The sickle sliced through the night, severing Uranus from his power in a single, shocking act. The sky split with a roar of pain and rage, as Uranus's immortal blood spilled onto the earth. From those drops would spring beings of dark and wild nature, the Furies, the giants, and the ash tree nymphs. With his father's overthrow, Cronus freed his siblings from Uranus's oppressive rule, but not the Hecatoncheires and Cyclopes. He feared their strength as much as Uranus did. Cronus now stood as ruler of the cosmos, wielding the sickle not just as a weapon, but as a symbol of the new order. A symbol, yet in his father's dying breath came a prophecy that would haunt him forever. One day, his own child would overthrow him, just as he had done to Uranus. With Uranus dethroned, Cronus ascended as ruler of the Titans. The world entered what would be remembered as the Golden Age, a time of peace, abundance, and no suffering. The earth yielded crops freely, rivers ran pure, and the seasons were gentle. Mortals had yet to be born, but the divine realm thrived in harmony. Cronus took his sister Rhea as his queen, and together they ruled from the heights of Mount Othrys. The Titans prospered under his governance, each fulfilling their cosmic role. Oceanus tended the seas, Hyperion the sun, and Themis kept the laws of the cosmos. Yet, beneath the surface of Cronus's calm rule, the prophecy gnawed at his mind. The words of Uranus echoed like an unending curse. You too shall be overthrown by your child. Determined to avoid his father's fate, Cronus resolved to ensure no child of his could rise against him. He smiled at feasts, presided over celebrations, and appeared the benevolent king, but in secret, his thoughts darkened with fear. Every glance at Rhea stirred suspicion. His reign, though glorious in appearance, was already shadowed by paranoia. The seeds of the next great cosmic conflict were quietly taking root. Rhea's first cries of labor echoed through the halls of Mount Othrys, and with them came hope for a new generation. She delivered a daughter, Hestia, rosy and warm as the hearth fire, only for Cronus to arrive, face carved in cold pride. Without a word, he opened his jaws and swallowed the newborn whole. Rhea screamed, but the deed was done. It is for the safety of the realm, Cronus said, voice smooth as polished stone. When Demeter was born, the same horror unfolded, then Hera, then Hades, then Poseidon. Each child vanished into their father's living prison, condemned to darkness before they saw the light of day. Rhea's heart hollowed with grief. In the courts, music still played and garlands still hung. But the queen moved like a winter shadow, her smile brittle as frost. The Titans whispered, "Was this the price of peace?" Cronus, though celebrated, ruled a palace of echoes, his triumph dining with dread. He slept lightly, dreaming of small hands pulling him down. Rhea began to plan, secretly, quietly, because a mother's silence is not surrender. If prophecy could be swallowed, so could mercy. And mercy, she decided, would be given not to Cronus, but to the child who would end his fear. When Rhea felt the sixth child stir, she fled the glittering halls and sought counsel from Gaia beneath ancient cypresses. The Earth Mother listened, eyes deep with time. "You cannot change prophecy," Gaia murmured, "but you can shape its path." Together they devised a deception. Rhea would travel to a hidden cave in Crete to give birth. Cronus would receive something else. Under storm-dark skies, Rhea crossed the wine-dark sea, her tears lost in salt spray. In the cave of Dicte, attended by nymphs, she bore a son, Zeus, his first breath bright as lightning in a jar. While the child nursed, Gaia fashioned a heavy stone, wrapped it in swaddling cloth, and blessed it with the scent of newborn skin. Rhea returned to Othrys with trembling hands. "A son," she announced, and offered the bundle. Cronus, driven by the habit of fear, swallowed the stone without suspicion. The court exhaled. The queen collapsed into... That night, Rhea's heart beat in two places, in her chest and far away, where a cradle of stone and shadow guarded the last hope of her children. The deception held. Cronus slept, thinking the future was inside him, trapped. But destiny, hidden in a Cretan cave, was learning to cry in the emerald dusk of Crete. The cave of Dicte hummed with hidden life. Adrastea and Ida, swift-footed nymphs, cradled Zeus and fed him honeyed milk. Amalthea, the gentle goat, bent her horns and offered nourishment. From her abundance, the child grew strong and bright-eyed. Outside, the Curetes, warriors in bronze, kept watch with a ritual clamor. Zeus cried. They clashed their shields and stamped the earth so the sound would rise like thunder and drown out his voice, concealing him from Cronus's spies. Seasons turned. The cave became a small cosmos of training and tenderness. The nymphs taught Zeus the names of winds. The goat taught him sure-footed balance on slick stone. The curates taught rhythm, discipline, and the language of steel. Zeus learned the weight of silence and the art of patience. He traced constellations on the cave ceiling with a charred stick and asked questions about injustice, about swallowed siblings, about the meaning of strength. Strength is not the fist, Hestia said, smiling, but the hand that can open. Zeus kept that lesson beside his growing fury. By moonlight, Gaia visited in dreams, whispering of a locked world and of keys shaped like courage. When a shard of Amalthea's horn splintered, Zeus kept it as a token, a promise to grant plenty when the old order ended. The boy was becoming a storm. At last, Zeus left the cave, lean and lightning-eyed, and journeyed in disguise to the courts of Othrys. With Metis, the wise Titaness of counsel, he devised a plan sharper than swords. Do not strike first, Metis advised. Unmake his fear. Together they brewed an emetic draught, bitter as truth, sweet as false certainty. Zeus returned to Othrys as a humble cupbearer, his face shadowed, his name unspoken. In golden halls, Cronus presided, basking in flattery, the sickle displayed like a relic. Zeus moved unnoticed, pouring wine, studying habits, counting guards, learning the court's rhythms. He saw a Rhea across the room. Their eyes met for a heartbeat heavy with unshed years. During a feast, to honor the safety of the realm, Zeus presented the cup to Cronus, a blend worthy of a king. Cronus drank, nodding, and continued his boasts until the boasts broke. A tremor gripped his frame. The hall gasped. With a wrenching roar, Cronus disgorged Hestia, Demeter, Hera, Hades, and Poseidon, grown yet newborn, to the open air. The palace surged into panic. Guards dropped spears, Rhea cried out, half joy, half fear. Zeus set down the cup. Father, he said at last, voice like gathering thunder, the future you swallowed has learned to breathe. Cronus staggered, prophecy suddenly walking the room. Character appearances: Zeus grown, disguised, Metis, Cronus, Rhea, Hestia, Demeter, Hera, Hades, Poseidon, palace guards, Titans at court. Reunion was brief. War's breath already fogged the air. Zeus knew that to defeat the Titans, he needed allies as old as fear itself. Guided by Gaia, he and his siblings descended to Tartarus, the abyss where Uranus had first imprisoned the Cyclopes and Hecatoncheires. The path fell past iron caverns and rivers that remembered storms. Hecatoncheires, Briareus, Cottus, and Gyges sat in shackles the size of mountains, their 100 hands limp, their 50 heads whispering forgotten names. The Cyclopes blinked in the dark, forging sparks with their teeth to stay sane. Zeus spoke not as a jailer, but as a liberator. Help me end the hunger of fear. With a crack like dawn, chains broke. Freed, the Cyclopes returned to their forges and, in gratitude, crafted gifts that would crown new order. For Zeus, the thunderbolt. For Poseidon, the trident to shake all seas. For Hades, a helm of invisibility to move like night through stone. The Hecatoncheires flexed, each palm a catapult, each voice a war drum. The abyss brightened with purpose. As they ascended, Zeus felt the sky lean closer, listening. Above, Cronus gathered loyal Titans on Mount Othrys, banners black against a bruised horizon. Below, the newly freed beat their hands upon the earth, promising an avalanche. The board had pieces now. The game would be terrible and true. The world split into camps like a storm front, tearing a valley. Zeus led his siblings to take the heights of Olympus, a fierce white crown rising above thunder-braided clouds. There they swore oaths over fire and dew, to defend one another, to end the age of devouring, to bind rule to law. On Othrys, Cronus assembled Titans of great renown, Atlas towering like a cliff, Iapetus with mind like iron, Coeus and Creus, seasoned in strategy, Hyperion, blazing with ancient light, Oceanus, lover of equilibrium, held apart, the rivers murmuring neutrality. Messengers raced between mountains, each word sparking defections or hardening resolves. Hera sharpened her will. Demeter raised wheat that would feed armies. Hestia kept the vow fire alive. Hades tested the helm, vanishing between stones. Poseidon spoke to quaking tides. Zeus held the thunderbolt and felt responsibility weight his arm. "We fight so no child is swallowed again," he said. Across the gulf, Cronus raised the sickle, laughter like a blade. "We fight so the sky never kneels to the young." The first skirmishes snapped like dry branches. Scouts vanished. Rivers ran backward for a day. Stars tilted half a degree. Both mountains bristled. Both sides learned the other would not break from mere rumor of power. The war wanted more. Dawn broke like a symbol, and the first full clash of the Titanomachy began. Clouds gathered at Zeus's beckoning, their bellies heavy with intention. On the slopes below Othrys, the Hecatoncheires advanced, each step a tremor, boulders stacked in their 100 hands. The Titans answered with spears the size of ship masts and shields, hammered in an age before rain. Hyperion loosed shafts of burning day. Briareus caught them and hurled stones that made horizons jump. Poseidon struck the ground with his trident, and rivers stood upright like glass, then fell forward as charging walls of water. Hades vanished into rock, reappearing behind Titan lines to drag siege engines into caverns that did not formerly exist. Hera coordinated flanks with unblinking discipline. Demeter rooted grain that snared enemy feet. Hestia's fire never went out, feeding wounded courage. Cronus descended at last, sickle flashing, carving arcs of night through lightning. He met Zeus in a sky that screamed. Thunder answered steel, steel split thunder. For a heartbeat, the world hung undecided between fathers and children. Then Zeus fainted high, cast low, and the bolt struck near Cronus's feet, opening a scar into which the Hecatoncheires poured stones like rain. The Titans reeled but did not fall. Atlas lifted a mountain and used it as a shield, his laugh shaking birds from trees. The battle ended only because the sun bled west. Both sides withdrew, counting cost. Not victory, not defeat, only knowledge. This war would be measured not in days, but in the patience of mountains. The second year of the war saw Olympus on the offensive. Zeus, determined to break Kronos' defenses, ordered a full siege on Mount Othrys. The Hecatoncheires hurled boulders in relentless waves, while Poseidon churned the surrounding seas into whirlpools, cutting off supply routes. Hades tunneled under the mountain, creating labyrinthine traps that swallowed enemy patrols whole. Hera commanded aerial units of eagles and hawks, using them for reconnaissance and distraction. Inside Othrys, Cronus fortified the halls, placing Atlas at the gates as an immovable sentinel. Hyperion summoned blazing walls of light to blind advancing forces, while Iapetus directed counter assaults from hidden passes. The siege became a war of endurance. Days blurred into nights under constant bombardment. The Titans sang battle hymns that rolled down the slopes like avalanches of sound, shaking the Olympian ranks. Zeus, pacing the siege lines, knew that time favored the defenders, but surrender was not an option. A whisper from Metis reached him, "Break not the wall, but the will." Plans began to shift. While the Titans slept in the false peace of midnight, Olympian spies crept close to map weak points in the mountain's heart. The siege, once brute force, became a game of patience and precision, each side feeling the strain of years. Within the Titan ranks, not all loyalty was unshakable. Menoetius, son of Iapetus and brother to Atlas, had grown disillusioned with Cronus's cause. Arrogant by nature, he had once delighted in displays of brute force, but years of stalemate had dulled his pride. Approached in secret by Hermes, newly risen messenger of the Olympians, Menoetius was offered a bargain, safety, honor, and a place in the new order in exchange for intelligence on Othrys' defenses. At first he scoffed, but whispers of Cronus's paranoia, his cold disregard for all but his own survival, tipped the scale. Under cover of darkness, Menoetius slipped away to an agreed clearing, where Zeus awaited with thunder cloaked in his palm. The Titan offered maps, guard schedules, and knowledge of secret escape tunnels. In return, Zeus spared his life and promised him governance over a lesser domain after the war. When Kronos discovered the betrayal days later, his fury cracked stone. Menoetius had already vanished under the protection of the Olympians. The act sowed distrust in the Titan camp, each warrior wondering if the comrade beside them might be the next to change sides. Kronos's rage became an unending storm, but the damage was done. The seeds of internal collapse had been sown. Seeking to cripple the Titans' access to resources, Poseidon unleashed a plan as old as the seas themselves. Guided by the Cyclopes' calculations, he struck the earth with his trident at a narrow canyon near Othrys. The blow split the ground, redirecting an entire river toward the Titan supply valley. Within days, water surged in, drowning granaries, smithies, and forges. The once bustling valley became a glittering lake under the cold sun. Cronus sent Hyperion to evaporate the waters with solar fire, but Poseidon countered with relentless rains. Atlas attempted to dam the river by sheer strength, holding back torrents with his shoulders, but the Hecatoncheires hurled boulders to collapse his work. The Titans fought knee-deep in mud, dragging supplies to higher ground. Demeter, from Olympus, ensured that crops bloomed only for the Olympian lines, leaving Titan forces hungry and weary. The valley's destruction marked the first tangible loss of territory for Cronus. The sight of their drowned homeland hardened the resolve of the Olympians, but it also deepened the Titans' desperation. Hunger, as much as steel, began to gnaw at the will to fight. War is not won by daylight alone. On the 15th month of the siege, Zeus ordered a covert night raid to strike directly at Othrys' armories. Hades, cloaked by his helm of invisibility, led a select force of gods and nymph warriors through shadowed passes. Guided by Menoetius' stolen maps, they reached the Titan stockpile without raising alarms. Inside, they found rows of colossal spears, armor engraved with constellations, and siege engines carved from living rock. With silent efficiency, they sabotaged the weapons, ropes cut, wheels cracked, oils poured on wood. At a signal from Hades, Hermes loosed a small blaze in the storage of pitch. The fire spread quietly, then roared. By the time Titans awoke to the scent of burning, the armory was an inferno. Hyperion's light came too late. Atlas charged into the flames, retrieving what he could. Kronos' fury split the night sky, but the damage crippled the Titan's ability to launch large-scale offensives for months. The raid became a whispered legend in Olympian ranks, proof that even giants could be wounded in the dark. In retaliation for the night raid, Cronus unleashed Creus, the Titan of constellations and violent storms. Creus commanded winds that sliced like blades, sending hurricane gales against Olympus. Entire forests bent or snapped under the assault. lightning not of Zeus's making ripped across the sky. The Olympians braced themselves. Hera anchored the camp with protective wards, while Poseidon countered the winds with towering waves. Forcing the storms back, Hades sheltered troops in caverns, guiding them through subterranean routes to safety. Cronos's assault lasted for 9 days and nights, shaking the war's momentum. Zeus confronted him above the clouds, where stars spun wildly in the tempest. The duel was a ballet of storm and strike, thunder against stellar fire. Finally, Zeus struck Cronos's shoulder with a thunderbolt, sending him crashing into the sea. Though not slain, Cronos withdrew, his storms dissipating. The Olympians emerged, battered but unbroken, and morale surged at having endured a Titan's full wrath without collapse. As the war dragged into its 3rd year, Zeus sought fresh allies. He turned his attention to the river gods, sons of Oceanus and Tethys, who commanded the waterways across the mortal and divine realms. Though Oceanus himself remained neutral, many of his children were eager to choose sides. In a council held at the delta of the river Achelous, Zeus offered them a promise. Under the Olympian order, rivers would run free, unbound by Titan dictates, and their domains would be honored forever. Achelous agreed first, followed by Peneus and Alpheus, their waters shimmering with new loyalty. They pledged to use their floods to disrupt Titan movements, eroding supply routes and drowning enemy fortifications. In return, Zeus swore to protect their springs from defilement. When Cronus heard of this alliance, he sent emissaries to sway them back, but the river gods stood firm. Soon, whole valleys under Titan control were made impassable by sudden torrents, and for the first time in years, the Olympians gained swift mobility through hidden waterways. The alliance marked a turning point. Water itself had chosen a side. Hyperion, Titan of the sun, had long been one of Cronus's most formidable generals. His light could blind entire legions, and his fire could scorch armies to cinders. Determined to end his reign of solar terror, Zeus devised a coordinated strike. At dawn, while Hyperion ascended to unleash his blaze, Hera created a veil of clouds thick as stone, cutting off his direct sight. From the sea, Poseidon hurled columns of water upward, forcing Hyperion to dodge and scatter his light. The Cyclopes, from hidden cliffs, launched bronze nets forged to withstand heat, entangling the Titan's limbs. As Hyperion struggled, Zeus struck with 3 thunderbolts in succession, each hitting with the force of an earthquake. Hyperion fell into the waves, the sea swallowing his golden armor. Though he did not perish, he was carried far from the battlefield, his light dimmed for the remainder of the war. Without his blinding assaults, the Titan's upper hand in daylight battles crumbled, giving the Olympians more freedom to move. Atlas, the indomitable Titan, had been the bulwark of Othrys's defenses since the war's beginning. His sheer presence at the front lines kept Olympian advances slow. Recognizing his importance, Zeus sent Hades and Poseidon on a mission to remove him from battle. Hades tunneled under Atlas's position, creating a deep pit disguised beneath woven roots and sand. Poseidon, meanwhile, lured Atlas toward the trap by sending a surge of water to cut off his retreat. As Atlas charged through the flood, the ground gave way, swallowing him into the abyss. The Hecatoncheires immediately hurled massive boulders into the pit, sealing it from above. Trapped underground, Atlas roared with rage, but the combined weight of stone and earth held him fast. Without Atlas to anchor their defenses, Titan lines began to fracture. Cronus ordered an urgent rescue, but every attempt failed under Olympian interference. Atlas's absence was felt like a missing pillar. The battlefield leaned toward Olympus. Themis, Titaness of divine law and order, had long remained with Cronus. believing the Titan cause was just. Yet as the war wore on, she saw his rule erode into paranoia and chaos. When Zeus sent envoys, offering her a place as arbiter in the future order, she refused at first, until she witnessed Cronus punish his own loyal generals for imagined betrayals. Quietly, she began passing intelligence to the Olympians, advising them on Titan strategies and troop movements. Her defection was not public. She continued to serve in the Titan court, masking her intentions until the right moment. That moment, when she deliberately misdirected Cronus's army into a valley where Poseidon's floods and Hecatoncheir's bombardment awaited. The route was decisive. With that single act, she signaled her loyalty to Olympus, stepping openly into Zeus's camp afterward. Her wisdom brought not only tactical advantage but legitimacy. The goddess of law had chosen Zeus's vision of order over Cronus's crumbling reign. With Hyperion gone and Themis turned, Zeus sought to claim total dominion over the skies. Cronus countered by summoning ancient sky serpents, winged beasts older than the Titans themselves. Their scales flashed like storm clouds, their breath a hurricane. Zeus led his siblings upward, thunderbolts arcing through the clouds. Hera guided flocks of divine birds to harry the serpent's wings, while Poseidon hurled water upward as jagged ice spears. Hades, unseen, cut the bindings on the serpent's saddles, sending their Titan riders plummeting. The battle raged above both Olympus and Othrys, lightning and wind weaving a tapestry of chaos. At its height, Zeus faced the largest serpent, driving his thunderbolt straight into its open maw. The creature convulsed and fell, scattering clouds in its descent. With their aerial advantage broken, the Titans could no longer threaten Olympus from above. From that day, the sky was Zeus's uncontested realm, a sign to both armies that the balance of power had shifted irreversibly. Iapetus, Titan of mortality and skill, stood as one of Cronus's most calculating generals. His strategies were sharp, his foresight legendary. Zeus knew that removing him would cripple the Titan's ability to plan long campaigns. Using Themis's intelligence, Zeus laid a trap in the narrow pass of Phlegra. The Olympians staged a feigned retreat, drawing Iapetus's forces into the valley. At the signal, Poseidon's floods rushed in from both sides, while Hecatoncheires unleashed a rain of stone from the cliffs. Iapetus fought fiercely, wielding twin spears and rallying his soldiers. But Hades emerged from the shadows and struck from behind, stealing his weapons. Zeus descended in a blaze of lightning, shattering the ground at Iapetus's feet. Pinned and disarmed, the Titan was bound in chains forged by the Cyclopes. He was taken to Tartarus, where even his cunning could not find escape. Without Iapetus's guidance, Titan's strategy faltered, leaving Cronus more isolated in his command. The Hecatoncheires, though fierce, had fought as allies rather than sworn followers. Zeus sought to bind their loyalty with more than shared cause. In a grand ceremony atop Olympus, Zeus offered them thrones beside the Olympians in the future order. Briareus, Cottus, and Gyges listened in solemn silence. They recounted their years of imprisonment under Uranus, the betrayal of Kronos, and their longing for a world where their strength was honored rather than feared. At last, they clasped all 100 hands in a massive, interwoven grip, swearing to fight until the Titans were defeated. The oath was sealed with offerings from each Olympian: Hera's wreath of victory, Poseidon's pearl of the deep, Hades' obsidian blade, Demeter's sheaf of golden wheat, Hestia's eternal flame, and Zeus's own thunderbolt held aloft. From that day forward, their bombardments grew even more relentless, their defense of Olympus unshakable. Cronus, seeing their renewed vigor, realized that brute force could not dislodge them, and began to consider more desperate measures. Cronus's throne room grew colder with each loss, Atlas was gone, Hyperion dimmed, Iapetus chained, and Themis defected. His remaining generals pressed for a decisive strike before the war turned entirely against them. And desperate, Cronus sought the counsel of Nyx, the primordial goddess of night, who had remained apart from the conflict. In the depths of shadow, she warned him, "Your end is written, but you may choose its shape." Refusing to yield, Cronus returned to Othrys and began crafting a plan of annihilation to summon the ancient chaos serpent Ophion from the edge of the void. The fording, or such a creature would devastate both sides, leaving him to rebuild in the ruins. Even his loyalists hesitated at the danger. Still, Cronus prepared the summoning rites in secret, using fragments of Uranus's blood and stone from Tartarus's deepest floor. Unbeknownst to him, spies of Hermes overheard the incantations and carried word to Zeus. The Olympian leader now faced a choice: strike before Ophion could be unleashed, or risk a battle against a being older than Titans and gods alike. Learning of Cronus's plan, Zeus decided to confront him before Ophion could be fully summoned. The Olympians launched a surprise assault on the summit of Othrys during a lunar eclipse, when the veil between realms was thinnest. Cronus stood at the altar, the air vibrating with primordial energy. His sickle glowed with the light of distant stars, the summoning nearly complete. Hera and Poseidon flanked the mountain, cutting off reinforcements, while Hades emerged from a shadow gate behind Cronus. The clash was immediate and violent. Thunder against starlight, trident against sickle. The altar cracked under their blows, and a rift yawned open, through which the serpent Ophion's head began to emerge. Rhea hurled a boulder directly into the rift, stunning the creature, while Zeus struck with a thunderbolt so fierce it sealed the breach. The backlash hurled Cronus from the altar, his summoning broken. The Titans withdrew, their greatest gamble lost. The Olympians had not just won a battle. They had averted the birth of a cataclysm. With Cronus's failed summoning, morale in the Titan camp fractured. Zeus seized the opportunity to launch a direct storming of Mount Othrys. The Hecatoncheires led the charge, their 100 arms battering the gates to splinters. Poseidon flooded the lower halls, forcing defenders to higher ground, where Hera's forces awaited. Inside, hall after hall fell to the Olympians. The Cyclopes dismantled siege engines, turning their parts into improvised weapons. Hades' shadows choked the corridors, scattering Titan defenders in confusion. Cronus himself fought in the central hall, cutting down any who approached, his sickle a blur of silver arcs. But for every Titan who fell, another rushed forward. The fighting became a grinding, brutal push. By nightfall, the Olympians controlled the outer halls and much of the mountain slope. Yet Cronus still held the throne room, guarded by his last and most loyal warriors. The war was now poised for its final act. At last, the inevitable came. Zeus entered the throne room of Othrys, thunderbolt in hand. Cronus rose from the black throne, sickle gleaming. The air crackled with the weight of prophecy fulfilled. They circled each other, exchanging no words, only blows that shook stone and split air. Lightning clashed against adamantine, each strike a contest of raw will. Cronus fought with the ferocity of a king unwilling to yield, landing a slash across Zeus's arm. Zeus answered with a bolt that shattered the dais. Outside, the battle raged, but here the war was distilled to two figures locked in combat. At the fight's height, Zeus feinted left, drew Cronus into an overextended swing, and hurled his thunderbolt into the sickle itself. The weapon exploded into shards of molten light, the force knocking Cronus to his knees. Zeus leveled another bolt at his father, but paused. "Your reign ends here," he said. Cronus dropped his gaze, the will to fight gone. Chains of unbreakable bronze closed around him. With Cronus bound, the remaining Titans were brought before Zeus in the ruined hall of Othrys. Some, like Themis, was spared and given roles in the new order. Others, such as Coeus, Creus, and the unrepentant Hyperion, were sentenced to imprisonment in Tartarus under the watch of the Hecatoncheires. Atlas, once freed from his underground prison, was punished by being made to bear the sky upon his shoulders for eternity, a reminder of the cost of defiance. Oceanus was allowed to remain neutral, his waters untouched. Zeus's judgments were swift but measured, aiming to end cycles of vengeance. Hades oversaw the binding of prisoners in Tartarus, while Poseidon secured the seas to prevent escapes. By the day's end, the Titan army was no more, its leaders either allied, neutralized, or exiled. The old order had fallen, and the Olympians now stood as masters of the cosmos. In the aftermath of victory, Zeus convened his siblings to decide the fate of the world. They agreed to divide the cosmos into 3 realms: the sky to Zeus, the seas to Poseidon, and the underworld to Hades. The earth and Olympus would be shared among all gods. To seal the agreement, they cast lots before all assembled deities. The Cyclopes presented Zeus with the master thunderbolt, Poseidon with his trident, and Hades with the helm of darkness. The division brought balance, ensuring that no single god could dominate all realms. Rhea, freed from her long grief, blessed the new order, and Gaia's voice was heard in approval. Yet even as celebrations began, the gods understood that ruling would require as much wisdom as war. The scars of the Titanomachy ran deep, and, though peace reigned, the memory of the old struggle would forever shape the new age. Though defeated, Kronos' fate remained uncertain. Some urged execution, others feared his death might unbalance the cosmos. Zeus chose banishment, sending him to dwell in the farthest reaches of the earth, in a twilight realm where no mortal or god would tread. Guarded by spirits of shadow and bound by oaths sworn on the Styx, Cronus was given no throne, no army, only his memories. Yet in this exile, he was said to have found a strange peace, ruling over shades in a quiet land some called the Isles of the Blessed. Whether this was mercy or punishment depended on the telling. The prophecy had come true, but Zeus had not destroyed his father, perhaps remembering that even a devourer was once a child. With the Titans defeated and realms divided, the Olympians took their place as the new rulers of the cosmos. Olympus became a city of gleaming marble and gold, where each god held court over their domain. Festivals were held in honor of the victory, and mortals, newly shaped from the dust of the earth, began to offer worship. The Cyclopes and Hecatoncheires were honored as heroes, given places of honor in the great halls. Rhea walked freely among her children, her joy restoring warmth to the mountain. Zeus ruled with a mixture of strength and counsel, often seeking the advice of Themis to maintain justice. Poseidon patrolled the seas, while Hades kept order in the underworld. Peace, for now, stretched across the land. But in the whispers of shadows and the quiet turning of fate, seeds of new stories began to grow. The age of the Titans had ended. The age of the Olympians had begun. To heal the wounds left by the Titanomachy, Zeus declared a great feast on Olympus, inviting even those Titans who had been spared or had chosen neutrality. Oceanus and Tethys arrived, their rivers whispering peace, and Themis took her seat beside the Olympians as arbiter. The Hecatoncheires sat at the head of the warriors' table, their laughter rumbling like distant storms. Food and drink flowed endlessly, ambrosia for the gods, nectar for honored guests. Rhea moved among the tables, reuniting with old kin and ensuring that all felt welcome. Hera orchestrated the evening with flawless grace, turning the feast into a spectacle of unity. Yet beneath the music and laughter, old grudges lingered in wary glances. Zeus rose to speak, calling for an end to the age of fear and the beginning of one of law and balance. The applause was genuine, but in some hearts, the seeds of future rivalries stirred quietly. Still, for this night, the war was over, and Olympus glowed with celebration. In the wake of victory, Zeus summoned all gods, allies, and spared Titans to swear binding oaths upon the river Styx. The ceremony was held at the sacred spring where the Styx emerged, its black waters rippling with power. One by one, each swore never to raise arms against the new order without just cause. Themis recorded every vow, her scrolls glowing with divine authority. Breaking such an oath meant exile or worse, as the Styx itself would curse the violator. Poseidon pledged to defend the seas and keep peace among their dwellers. Hades vowed to maintain balance in the underworld, guarding its gates. Even Oceanus pledged neutrality in perpetuity. With every promise, the air thickened with magic, and the bonds of the new age tightened. Cronus' name was not spoken. His exile ensured his absence, but the oaths ensured as allies could not rekindle the old war. Zeus, seeking to reward valor and loyalty, created the Isles of the Blessed, a paradise for heroes and allies who had served with honor. Situated beyond the western sea, the isles were bathed in perpetual spring, where the air carried music and the earth yielded fruit without toil. The Hecatoncheires visited often, their massive hands planting groves that would shade future generations. Rhea ensured the isles bore flowers from every corner of the world. Here, the river gods built crystal pools, and the Cyclopes forged sculptures of bronze and gold to honor the victors. The first to dwell there were the bravest nymphs, warriors, and spirits who had stood with Olympus during its darkest days. This creation served both as a reward and a reminder that loyalty to the gods could earn a place in eternal peace. Even Hades smiled upon the isles, for their residents had earned escape from his realm. To make Olympus the eternal seat of their power, Zeus tasked the Cyclopes with building a city worthy of the gods. Using white marble from sacred quarries and gold from rivers guarded by nymphs, they raised towering halls, glittering temples, and walls carved with scenes from the war. The Hecatoncheires moved the largest stones into place, each block humming with divine energy. Hera oversaw the creation of the Grand Council Chamber. Poseidon added fountains and flowing channels, bringing the sound of water to the mountaintop. Demeter planted gardens of endless bounty. At the summit, Zeus's palace rose, crowned with a great bronze dome that caught the sun by day and the stars by night. When the work was done, the city of Olympus shone so brightly it could be seen from the farthest shores of the earth. It stood as both fortress and symbol, a promise that the gods were here to stay. When Olympus was complete, a formal coronation was held for Zeus as king of the gods. All deities gathered in the central square, garlands of laurel and olive adorning every pillar. Rhea crowned her son with a circlet of gold, forged by the Cyclopes and blessed by Themis. Hera stood beside him as queen, her eyes reflecting both pride and resolve. The ceremony included offerings to Gaia, honoring the earth's role in their victory, and libations poured to the river Styx, sealing the oaths anew. Thunder rolled in approval as Zeus swore to protect the balance of the cosmos and uphold justice among gods and mortals. Cheers echoed across the mountaintop, and the skies cleared in a radiant burst of sunlight. It was the moment the Olympian order became official, and all knew that the age of the Titans had given way to something enduring, Following the coronation, the first festival of the gods was proclaimed, a celebration to be held every year in honor of the victory and the unity of Olympus. For 7 days, music filled the air as muses sang of the Titanomachy, their voices weaving history into song. Hephaestus displayed new creations in the forge, while Apollo's lyre accompanied the dances of nymphs and satyrs. Poseidon hosted contests on the sea, chariot races across waves drawn by hippocamps. Demeter presided over feasts where mortals and immortals dined together. Hera judged competitions of beauty and skill, while Hades allowed the spirits of honored dead to visit and join the festivities. The festival became not just a remembrance of war, but a binding ritual that renewed loyalty and camaraderie among the gods. Each year, the fires of celebration reminded Olympus of what they had fought for. Character appearances: Zeus, Hera, Poseidon, Hades, Demeter, Apollo, muses, Hephaestus, nymphs, satyrs, honored spirits. Despite the peace, Gaia sensed that the balance of the new order could be fragile. She summoned Zeus and his siblings to her sacred grove, where the roots of the earth whispered truth. "You have won," she said, "but power invites challenge. Beware those who covet what you hold." She warned of future threats, giants born of her own blood who would rise if the gods became arrogant. Hades took her warning with solemn weight. Poseidon nodded in agreement, while Hera urged vigilance in governance. Zeus promised to lead with justice, but he understood Gaia's counsel was not mere caution, it was prophecy. The meeting ended with offerings to the earth, sealing a pact between Olympus and its primal mother. From that day, Gaia's grove was visited yearly by the gods, seeking her wisdom to prevent the cycle of war from repeating. With many titans imprisoned in Tartarus, Zeus ordered its defenses strengthened to ensure no escape. The Hecatoncheires were appointed as eternal wardens, their watchtowers rising from the abyss like jagged teeth. Hades wove enchantments into the prison gates, making them impassable even to gods without his leave. The Cyclopes forged chains so heavy that even Atlas could not break them. Patrols of shadow spirits moved constantly through the lower realms, reporting any disturbance. Occasionally, prisoners would test the limits of their confinement, but the combined might of the wardens and enchantments kept all secure. These measures served not just to hold the Titans, but as a warning to any who might defy Olympus. That rebellion would lead to an inescapable fate. Though victorious, Zeus could not forget the prophecy that had shaped his life, that one day a child of his own might overthrow him as he had Cronus. The thought haunted him in quiet moments, a shadow behind the throne. Hera noticed his unease, but said nothing, knowing that time would reveal its truth. To guard against such a fate, Zeus began shaping laws for succession and governance, ensuring that no single ruler could dominate without the consent of the council. Still, whispers of fate cannot be silenced by decree. Oracles hinted that the cycle would indeed continue, though its shape was hidden. The lesson of Cronus's downfall lingered. Power must be balanced by wisdom, or it would one day be torn away. The prophecy remained patient. Years after the last battle, the story of Cronus and the fall of the Titans became legend, told by poets, sung by the muses, and carved into the marble walls of Olympus. Mortals learned of the war as a tale of justice and the triumph of the young over the old, though the gods knew the truth was more complex. Temples rose to honor Zeus, Poseidon, and Hades, while shrines to the fallen Titans dotted the earth, tended by those who remembered a different age. The scars of battle faded into hills and valleys, yet the echo of the Titanomachy lived in the wind and sea. Zeus often stood on the balcony of his palace, looking toward the horizon, knowing that their victory had not ended the story, only begun the next chapter in the endless cycle of power. But for now, the gods reigned, Olympus shone, and the world turned under the watchful eyes of those who had fought, won, and remembered. And so, dear friends, our journey through the age of the Titans draws to a close. From the first breath of chaos to the clash of gods and giants, we have walked alongside Cronus in his rise and fall, witnessed the courage of Zeus, and felt the tremors of battles that shaped the very fabric of the cosmos. These tales are more than myths. They are echoes of human hopes and fears, reminders that power is never permanent, and that every age must one day yield to the next. I thank you for lending your time, your imagination, and your curiosity to this epic retelling. Every viewer, every listener, every dreamer who joins in this storytelling helps keep these ancient voices alive. Whether you came for the history, the drama, or the wonder, I hope this saga has left you inspired and perhaps even thoughtful about the cycles of our own world. May the wisdom of the past guide your steps, and may the spark of myth light your path. Until our next journey into the legends of old, thank you, and may the gods of story bless your days.